Hello everyone, welcome to the Deck Technician, reviewing popular CEDH decks found online. I give them a run over and then talk to the author of the primer on the CEDH database. Links to the database as well as the deck list today will be below, so make sure to leave a like and comment below letting us know the next deck tech you'd like to see. Today's commander is Animar, Soul of Elements. He, or should I say it, costs 1 blue, 1 red, and 1 green. It says protection from white and from black, as well as whenever you cast a creature spell, put a +1/+1 counter on Animar, Soul of Elements. Then finally, the key ability that makes Animar what it is that creature spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each +1/+1 counter on Animar. Animar looks to push his position on the board, quickly casting high CMC creatures for reduced prices and eventually paying off with Ancestral Statue. While Animar is also given extra combos in order to be able to win without these cards, Animar looks to play tutors or draw, then use semi-linear combos in order to win the game. Early game, Animar seeks to play a quick game, getting Animar out on turn 1 if possible, and turn 2 if not. In order to get the main combo online, you'll need an extra turn or two in order to build Animar's potential. If you're able to get Ancestral Statue or a tutor early, you'll be in a good spot with Animar, so in order to build up to this point, you can take advantage of cards like Birds of Paradise and Haywire Might. In the middle of the game, Animar looks to reach his true potential. As a creature storm deck, Animar wants to play fast. If it's not possible yet due to hands or opponents, then look to get tutors and buy time with interactions, as well as occasional stack pieces like Collector Ufe. In order to reach these tutors, look to get cards like All-Round Frostfang, Rhystic Study, or Ledger Shredder. Creature options will be especially rewarding, building the counters on Animar necessary to combo. In order to close out the game, the quickest way is to play Walking Ballista to ping your opponent after comboing with Ancestral Statue. Late game, Animar looks to hold his interaction, being very difficult to win in the late game if you do not have a lot of extra mana or cheap interaction. If you've reached this far, it's likely due to a stack's opponent or a rule of law effect. This should be a target priority for Animar, as these types of cards will prevent the Ancestral Statue combo from being played. If you're unable to get the draw engines online, seek to pressure opponents by playing out creatures and continuing to swing with Animar. For our first combo today, though, there is no other place to start than Ancestral Statue. This card, without only needing a small condition to be met, is an easy, usually free card that combos with the commander as a one-card combo, and then has the payoff piece of Walking Ballista. In order for this combo to work, we'll need Ancestral Statue in our hand and Animar, Soul of Elements on the battlefield with at least 4 +1/+1 counters on him. With these 4 counters, we're able to play Ancestral Statue for free without paying any mana. This is due to Ancestral Statue being all colorless mana, so if we're able to target the Ancestral Statue with its own Enter the Battlefield ability, we can then replay it over and over again, getting an extra counter on Animar every time. This combo can then be paid off with Walking Ballista, pinging your opponents down with using Walking Ballista's ability. This combo itself is great for Animar. While each piece may not function that well in the deck on their own, they can still be very useful in niche circumstances. The ability to play out an entire combo for no mana is also incredibly powerful, leaving open extra mana in order to hold interaction for what would be control decks. The second combo to be explained will be Dockside Extortionist and Baron Master Wizard. Dockside is a staple card in the deck, making a combo very easy to have back up and ready. In order to pull off this combo, you'll need Dockside Extortionist and Baron Master Wizard, as well as 6 artifacts among your opponent's boards. In order to play its line, you'll play Dockside Extortionist, making 6 treasures, then using Baron Master Wizard's ability, sacrificing 3 treasures. Note this is 2 treasures for mana and 1 treasure for the sacrifice of permanent. You'll use this in order to bounce Dockside Extortionist back to your hand. Then with this achieved, you can recast the Dockside Extortionist by sacrificing another 2 treasures. This will net you another 6 treasures, and you will have had 1 left over, meaning that this loop can be repeated an infinite amount of times for treasures. Allowing the infinite bouncing of any creature, notably Eternal Witness, would then allow you to recur any card in the deck infinitely, allowing for a huge variety of different ideas. This combo itself works amazingly in Animar as a backup, having a really strong deck piece, Dockside Extortionist, as one of its pieces. Baron Master Wizard may in comparison be seen as a very weak or not usable card at first, but it does allow the ability to bounce any creature on the board, allowing for repeatable interaction even if at a greater cost. This can also be used to bounce an Ancestral Statue should there have been a need earlier in the game. Moving on though, counters are an essential part of the Animar deck, and as such this deck has a few options in order to get rid of a few counters on Animar, or to get a few counters on Animar. These can be seen in Haywire Might, Sylvan's Safekeeper, and Ragavan, among a few cards. As for just 1 mana, free in the case of Haywire Might potentially, you can get a free reducer on all of your future creature spells. Moving on, Professional Facebreaker is a payoff card that you could use with those counters, being 2 colorless and 1 red mana. It says Menace, and whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, create a treasure token, and then sacrifice a treasure token to exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. This card is able to get us both good parts in one, mana and potential draw. Its best part is being able to be played for as little as 1 mana. In an Animar deck, enchantments are not usually as synergistic, so if they are run, they must be essential. 3 of the enchantments are shown here, with the stacks effects from Mystic Study and Mystic Remora being good enough to lock out some tables, and they fit right at home with the draw requirements asked for by Animar. Sylvan Library may seem like a lot of life at first, but if you have Animar with enough counters, your life total should be fine as your combat deterrent will be very high. In counter spells, there is a lot of instances that do dedicate themselves to interaction, as this deck stays interactive, trying to find the exact moment to throw a wrench in the stack's player or stop the turbo player or move on with their own combo. Timing is very important to make sure that all cards like Force of Will are used early, giving opponents more opportunities than before. With Animar, due to getting counters for every creature spell, Mana Dorks and some Mana Rocks can be pushed into the deck. Getting extra counters for Animar is played just making Mana Dorks more powerful, enabling cards like Birgi, God of Storytelling, to do interesting synergies. And lastly, as a reminder, the easiest and most consistent way to kill in this deck your opponents is Walking Ballista. It is what makes Ancestral Statue, the combo itself, so powerful, as it can be paid for X equals some arbitrarily large number. Then removing the counters to ping your opponents down for 40 life apiece. How fitting to end your opponents with counters after spending a whole game trying to collect them for Animar. And lastly, make sure to stick around because up next we have the co-owner of the deck and primer on the database, J.M. Craig, for our interview. Alrighty, and on to the interview portion of our deck tech today. Here we have ZClan7, one of the 2 authors here of the Animar deck. If you'd like to go ahead and introduce yourself, ZClan.
Yeah, hi guys, I'm Evan, also known as ZClan7 on Discord. I'm a co-host on the Past Party podcast, and I maintain the decklist database Animar deck with JM Craig or Jack.
Make sure to check down in the description below, as I'm also going to have a link to that podcast. He has a more in-depth description on Animar, as well as some other conversations that are insightful. So moving forward with our interview here today, Animar himself is a very powerful commander. I've seen him used in a few games where he's getting all these counters and he's playing Ancestral Statue as his main line. But to start, obviously the first question people are going to ask, what are some opening hands that you're looking for with Animar?
So Animar took a little bit of a change in philosophy in the last few months, and what you're really looking for is to get a hand that makes mana and gets down some sort of engine in the first 1 to 2 turns. So you're looking for any way to just put out like a 2 CMC card draw engine, plus hold up counter magic, and plus a way to find Dockside, really. There's a lot of tutors in the deck, so anything that just gets you set up on board and then also gets you to your Dockside is a really good opening hand in Animar.
And highlighting Dockside a little bit, you must be saying that that's one of the more powerful cards. Could you review some of the powerful cards in the deck and why you feel they're more powerful?
Yeah, what makes Animar so special is that it's a teamer deck that can just find whatever piece it needs to do the thing it's trying to do. Dockside is by far the most powerful card in the entire deck. So there's a lot of cards that abuse him: Metamorph, Vimage, Retrieval, Snap, any way to just make a lot of Docksides. And then you can combo that with Baron, which is also really easy to find, to kind of create this infinite mana / casts combo. So Dockside is really just the most powerful card in the entire deck, but on top of that, you add in heavy hitters like Consecrated Sphinx, Frostfang, Wandering Archaic, anything that Animar can cost reduce to just give you really a a lot of value in the game to catapult yourself ahead of the other decks.
Perfect. And other than Dockside, what do you think are some of the most important cards? Like if I just bought my Animar deck yesterday and I'm looking to build a CEDH build, what are some of those first cards that I want to get in the shop?
100% the combos. So you get your Ancestral Statue, Walking Ballista, so you have a way to close out the game. But you also want to get the better tutors in the deck. So Imperial Recruiter is a big one, Spell Seeker, Neoform, so you can do these tutor lines with Animar. So there's the Neoform line where you get Imperial Recruiter, which goes and gets Metamorph to go get Spellseeker, to get Neoform, to Neoform the Spellseeker into the statue, pick up the Recruiter or the Metamorph and replay it to go get the Ballista. A lot of really complicated lines, but really tutors are what makes Animar so powerful and how compact they can be.
Perfect. And so with the deck, always, of course, CEDH has an ever-changing environment. And it was funny enough, I was going to have to reference some of our old changes about a month ago, but we recently had some new changes. Could you recently highlight the change of Otawar and Brainstorm versus Waterlogged Grove and Utopia Sprawl?
So I've been under this philosophy lately that I just am going to make as many docksides as possible, and my win rate is directly correlated to the number of docksides I've made. So Otawara just seems like a really natural fit in here because it can pick up your dockside, but it's also a really good interaction piece because it can't be countered and it picks up stacks pieces. And the Brainstorm over Utopia Sprawl here is, again, because we're trying to make so many docksides and find them as fast as possible, we don't really need the slow mana production. We're just looking for another way to draw into a payoff, and Brainstorm is another way to just kind of get there.
Yep. And so last mechanical question here. Animar obviously looking to be kind of a storm creature deck. What pods do you think that this Animar best performs in?
At 100%, it performs best in mixed pods. So you have another turbo deck and then maybe two other mid-range decks, or two turbo and another mid-range deck. Because as long as you can outpace or tempo the turbo decks by placing a counter spell in the first couple turns on them, and you can set up on board, you're going to get more value than the turbo decks and also be able to just kind of battle the long game out with the other mid-range decks of the pod. Because you don't have enough counter magic to police the table, but you're also not fast enough to outpace the turbo decks from it.
I love it. And remember, as Storm players, we got to avoid the stack decks. We don't like them. And then last question over here to just help us close it out. So how come over all the Storm commanders, you have all the different options that people are seeing nowadays? Why do you choose Animar, and why do you recommend people look at Animar over a different Storm commander?
So Animar is, I'd say, an interesting Storm commander because it doesn't really ever want to storm unless it's winning the game. And it wants to put out these value pieces. So I say you'd probably want to pick Animar over other Teamer decks or other Storm decks if you're looking to have creature-based combos, really compact win lines, and you're also looking for something that looks to establish a board state, right? Like this deck doesn't run a Underworld Breach, so there's no just win out of nowhere type moments. I mean, unless your dockside's big, but there's this more sense of stabilizing and then going for a protected win, so you can have counter magic and other pieces in your hand other than your win con.
A great reason. So that about wraps up our time here today. Do you have any last comments for our people watching here today?
Yeah, feel free to join the Animar Discord. There should be a link in the description. We love to talk, chat, brew, and answer any questions you may have.
And he's completely right on that. We're going to have a link in the bottom description to the Discord for the Animar. Make sure to hop in there and give Z-Clan a shout out. We're also going to have in the description links to their podcasts. Make sure to check out that in-depth podcast. If you like what we did here today, you can take a look at a more in-depth look at Animar the Commander, and just also see what else he's got going on that podcast. So otherwise, Z-Clan, thank you again for coming out and telling us a bit about the Animar deck. Glad to have you on the YouTube channel here, and hope to see you around.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was awesome.